The 8th edition of Talks India, featuring an enlightening address by Dr. Shashi Tharoor, was held on 25th July 2025 at the iconic Great Hall of CMS College, Kottayam, jointly organized by CMS College and the Mulamoottilachen Foundation. In his talk titled My Vision for Kerala and the Role of the Youth, Dr. Tharoor delivered a powerful message that inspired, challenged and mobilized the young minds present. His eloquent insights into Kerala's potential, its pressing challenges and the transformative role of youth struck a deep chord with the spirit of Talks India. Embodying the campaign theme Responsible Society, It Starts With Me, Dr. Tharoor's thoughtful engagement with students was a stirring call to action for a smarter, inclusive and ethically grounded Kerala.
It is with sincere pride and anticipation that we welcome you to the 8th edition of Talks India, hosted here at CMS College, Kottayam, an institution that has been a cornerstone of India's cultural and educational legacy since 1817. As one of the oldest colleges in India, CMS has not only witnessed history, but it has also helped shaping it. The city of Kottayam, fondly called Aksharanagari, owes much of that identity to this very campus.
This college has always been a space where learning is not confined to classrooms but extended into dialogue, reflection and social responsibility. This is exactly the spirit of Talks India, a platform created to ignite thought and inspire action among India's youth. And today, we are deeply honored to welcome a speaker who embodies the very essence of that vision.
Dr. Shashi Tharoor, our distinguished guest this evening, is currently the Member of Parliament from Thiruvananthapuram and serves as a chairman of the Parliamentary Standing Committee of External Affairs. Before stepping into Indian public life, he served for nearly 3 decades at the United Nations, including his role as Under Secretary General. He is also a widely respected author, orator, and public intellectual whose insights continue to shape public discourse, but in India and internationally. Let us begin today's lecture with a prayer. I invite the CMS College to lead us in the prayer.
Father, we love you, we worship and adore you. Glorify thy name in all the earth. Glorify thy name. Glorify thy name. Glorify thy name in all the
It is indeed my pleasure to invite the dynamic principal of CMS College, who has consistently guided this institution with foresight and integrity. I invite Dr. Anju Shoshan George.
Good evening everyone and a very warm welcome to CMS College, Kottayam. Respected Dr. Shashi Tharoor, Member of Parliament, Reverend Dr. Abraham Mulamoottil, Founder of Talks India, dignitaries who are gathered here, principals from different schools who are here, teachers from in and around Kottayam, schools and colleges who are here, guests to the college, friends from the media, and my dear students. It is indeed a matter of joy and pride that we have gathered here today to listen to one of the most scintillating minds of our time. Dr. Tharoor has always charmed us with his smile, disarmed us with his voice, and mesmerized us with his oratorial skills. Political definitions apart, it is that author we have fallen in love with. the eternal lover of words that we have so often looked up to. His writing has at times whispered to us, or even at other times shouted from the pages. Dr. Shashi Tharoor, thank you for accepting our invitation, and it's such a joy and privilege to welcome you the fourth time back to this 208-year-old campus. We have closely followed your journeys as a writer and as a social activist, and we're incredibly proud of you, and we look forward to what future will hold. Thank you. Why we are here is to listen to Dr. Shashi Tharoor's vision of Kerala, particularly keeping the youth in mind. We live at a cusp of time, be it invasive technology, be it naming it a bane or a boon, being it cancer nicking off life's close home, be it migration that we see around, a demographic shift that is currently happening in Kerala, be it educational institutions deciding that they will not be feeder ground for politics. The issues we face are many. The discussion points are also many. We hope every educational institution like ours, and I believe we do have much representation from 5 different schools here, colleges from in and around Kottayam. At every educational institution, we hope to bring out worthy citizens of the nation, young minds who are aware of their rights and their responsibilities. And it is these conversations that we indulge in, these dialogues that are around us, that tell us that future, as we see it, is how we carve out of it. Because as somebody rightly said, tomorrow begins from the right step of today. And it is for that tomorrow where we want a wholesome, mindful, young minds to be shaped up. That's the reason why we are all here together. Welcome to Talks India Season 8. Welcome to this conversation of great minds. And I'm sure all of us who have battled the rains today are all here to listen to Dr. Tharoor. I'm not taking your time away from him. Welcome to CMS College, and thank you for joining us.
I would like to invite our Vice Principal, Dr. Reenu Jacob, to welcome our Chief Guest.
The most awaited time of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Dr. Shashi Tharoor to share his powerful vision for our state and the vital role we, the youth, are called to play in it.
Thank you very, very much for that most generous introduction, Principal and Vice Principal. As Father very pointedly mentioned to me, this is one of the few colleges where both the Principal and the Vice Principal are women. Congratulations. I think that's the right way to go. Distinguished guests, dear students, friends, it really is a privilege to address you here in this historic auditorium of CMS College, Kottayam, an institution that since its founding in 1817 has played a formative role in the intellectual evolution of our state of Kerala. Established by the CMS of England, CMS College was among the first to offer systematic Western-style higher education in India, and it stands as a testament to Kerala's early embrace of learning, rationalism, and public discourse. I'm really grateful to this wonderfully innovatively named Talks India program, a platform that seeks to nurture a knowledge society by cultivating analytical, ethical, and civic-minded citizens. It's in this spirit today that I will accept their kind invitation to share with you my vision for Kerala, grounded, I hope, not in rhetoric, but in facts, data, and possibilities, with a central emphasis, of course, on the role of youth, the products of this college, in shaping that vision. I must say I was struck by the fact that Talks India is built on the idea that human consciousness is a unique faculty for acquiring knowledge and critical thinking, and that your mission is to cultivate a profound sense of responsibility towards self and society, inspiring youth to engage deeply with India's rich intellectual and cultural heritage. That's extremely important to me too. It's something I've tried to do in my own life, and I'm so happy, therefore, to be part of this gathering and, of course, to play my own small part in articulating some of the ideas that I hope will take our state forward. I think by dint of our passion, the children of Kerala have already taken the nation by storm, excelling in all sorts of fields, from engineering to medicine, from politics to the fine arts, and bringing to all regions where we drop anchor our cherished values of pluralism and progress. And so, it's not hard to build a vision for Kerala on those foundations. I must say, we must go beyond the Kerala model of development we take so much pride in, though that is worth celebrating. But we need to chart out a roadmap for the future, which of course will have to be sculpted by the industrious and imaginative hands of our youth. And I will confess a special interest. I was born in the same year, 1956, as the state of Kerala. And therefore, to some degree, like Rushdie's Midnight's Children, I sort of feel somehow my destiny is intertwined with that of my state. So, jokes aside, I do believe that this introduces, for me, a matter worth discussing with all of you, that in the across the globe, the most innovative, developed and prosperous economies are not just the nations with the biggest tech parks or the deepest venture capital pockets, but nations that invest in good governance, gender equity, social welfare, and the happiness of their people. And that's why if you look at the Global Innovation Index and see who's at the head of it, Switzerland, Sweden, Singapore, US, UK, these are also countries that rank high on the indices such as the Human Development Index, the Corruption Perception Index, and of course the Gender Equity Index. In other words, in order to be innovative and industrious, and therefore financially successful, a nation must first invest in its people. And this, I believe, is something Kerala has been doing. By investing in universal healthcare, free or affordable, high-quality education, gender equity, such as the principal and vice principal today here embody, and human rights, including social welfare rights, we can transform our citizens into our most vital asset rather than a burden. It's by doing this that countries like Denmark and Finland, which spend a large chunk of their GDP on public services, have emerged also as amongst the innovative and the happiest nations in the world. And so, for us in Kerala, let us first of all celebrate the fact that we do have a state which has celebrated social welfare, not as charity, but as strategy. And let us also want to add to that transparency and accountability, entrepreneurship and ingenuity as well. Ever since its inception as a modern state, Kerala has pursued a model of development that has allowed it to rise head and shoulders above most other Indian states. And we do, as a result, boast of human development indicators comparable to those of Western nations. Kerala ranks first in India for overall Sustainable Development Goals performance, highest literacy rate in India, highest life expectancy, 75.2 against the Indian average of 69.4. The best sex ratio, 1,084 women to 1,000 men, whereas unfortunately for much of India it's the other way around. Lowest infant mortality, which is 6 per 1,000 births. The Indian average, sadly, is still 29. So we have a lot to be proud of. We have created a knowledge-driven and socially aware society. Yes, it helps that 3.4 million Keralites are living and working abroad, mostly in the Gulf, but also in Europe and North America. And they continue to contribute. At the last figure I saw, 1.3 lakh crore in remittances. But cumulatively, this means an educated, globally aware and mobile population is our natural capital. It must be harnessed through high-value employment, intellectual entrepreneurship, and policy innovation, especially in sectors like healthcare, education, green energy, biotechnology, and artificial intelligence. And I'll come back to some of the other sectors that we should really focus on in a minute. I do want to celebrate, as I said earlier, the Malayali miracle, which is something I first chronicled at some length in my 1997 book, India from Midnight to the Millennium. That was 28 years ago now, where I talked about the fact that ours is a state that has practiced openness and tolerance from time immemorial, which has made religious and ethnic diversity a part of our daily life rather than a source of division, which has overcome caste discrimination and class oppression through education, land reform, and political democracy, and which has honored its women, empowering them to lead productive and fulfilling lives. And I observed in that book, and I would still recommend those figures to you, though the numbers are out of date, that we in Kerala already had social development indicators comparable in 1997 to those of the United States of America, even though those were built those days on 1/70th the per capita income of America. Now, I do want to point out that amongst the most striking things is, in fact, what we began this talk with, the role of our women in this state. I have to say that you can't say of any other state in India today that every woman, every adult woman, every teenage woman, every child now reads. As a child, I grew up listening to my paternal grandmother read aloud from her venerable editions of the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, and I saw too my maternal grandmother running a big house and administering the affairs of a large brood of children and grandchildren with firmness and courage. In both cases, they had been widowed relatively young, but in neither case was their gender a disqualification for their assumption of authority. Malayalis are used to seeing women ruling the roost, which is why a principal and a vice principal should not surprise the male students in CMS. The truth is that in many, many ways, gender equity is now the norm rather than the exception in our society. And Amartya Sen has written about this, that the greater voice of women has been an important factor in Kerala's development. This is why we had a lower birth rate than China without the coercion that the Chinese needed. And a girl born in Kerala can expect to live 20 years longer than one born in Uttar Pradesh. She can expect to make important decisions in her life, unlike the ones born in Bihar, to attend college, to choose a profession, to do what others might consider men's work, and to inherit property, something which before the law was changed in 1956, Indian women could not expect to do unless they were Malayalis, especially those following the Kottayam matrilineal system. The other aspect of Kerala that I want to mention as a marker, apart from social development, human development, women's empowerment, is our openness to the outside world and influences, because we've had them all. Arab, Roman, Chinese, British, Islamic, Christian, Marxist, all of these have gone into the making of the Malayali mind. More than 2 millennia ago, Malayalis had trade relations not just with other parts of India, but with the Arab world, with the Phoenicians, the Roman Empire, the Chinese Empire. Some remnants of this are still in our kitchens in the shape of the cheen chetti. Of course, I don't know, I learned the expression in Palakkad, I don't know if you call it that here, but the cheen chetti is our favorite frying pan, which of course is the wok. On top of that, we've had the tradition of offering a home and refuge to communities from all over the world. Jews fleeing Roman persecution. Muslims coming here first as traders and merchants and then bringing the news of Islam as news rather than as coming with the sword as they complained in the north. The Christians, of course, with, as we all believe, St. Thomas arriving on the shores of Kerala only to be greeted by a flute-playing Jewish girl as he stepped ashore in Kerala. What kinds of stories we have in our legends of the state. The legend of the Kunyali Marikars, and how the Zamorin of Calicut was so impressed by the seafaring skills of the Muslim community that he decreed that every fisherman's family in his kingdom would have to bring up one son as a Muslim because he believed only Muslims could sail well. All of these amazing incidents. I think you all know the story of Cheruman Perumal, how when he heard the news of the Prophet in the Arab Peninsula, he decided he had to go and meet the gentleman. So he hopped onto a ship along with a small fleet headed off there. And though we never knew quite what happened, there are various legends about whether he met the Prophet or not and what messages he sent back. But one proof is still there. If you go to Oman, south of the port of Salalah, there are still Kerala coconut trees growing that he planted, which are not native to the Arab Peninsula. So that kind of openness, that kind of global connection is 2,000 years or at least 1,500 years old. It's not news. And Kerala has also been a land of trailblazing reform. Sri Narayana Guru and the Kerala Renaissance, the extraordinary words, Oru Jadi, Oru Madam, Oru Devam Manishana. All of this is in many ways echoing a sentiment, not so much for uniformity, but for unity across religions. Whether it is the CSI Church, I've just come speaking on the 147th anniversary of the CSI Archdiocese here. And I was recalling precisely this message, that the original founders of the church spread in Kerala, which is that the Christ of the cross cannot be robed in the clothes of caste, and that all are equal in the eyes of the Lord. That too was a very special message that came with Christianity. The extraordinary social reforms brought in by people like Saint Chavara, like Chattambi Swami, Mahatma Yankali, Vakkam Maulavi, all of these in different faiths in Kerala have ensured that social justice and equality prevail in our state because of their unrelenting crusade for the human rights of the excluded, to raise the voice of the silenced, and to give everyone an opportunity to learn, to grow, to flourish. And that is why today Kerala's working men and women enjoy greater rights and a higher minimum wage than anywhere else in India. And that harmony is something I have always very proudly celebrated. I speak of my pride in representing a constituency in Thiruvananthapuram where right in the central part of Palayam you have this amazing St. Joseph's Cathedral standing almost directly opposite the Palayam Juma Masjid. And just next to it is one of the oldest Ganapati temples in the state. All of these side by side, a poem of coexistence and harmony. Absolutely unlike many other parts of our country, sadly, where faith has been weaponized for political gains. We have a daily lived rebuttal to the use of faith for division, because we have instead, in our state, the use of faith for harmony, for unity, for coexistence. And then, of course, there is education, which is, of course, a two-sided thing, because it is education that on the one hand gives us an awareness of everything that we should know about the world, or as much as possible, but also gives us perhaps a greater consciousness of our rights and a willingness to make demands that have perhaps frightened away some investors from our state. We're also no-nonsense people when it comes to politicians. Any politician who fails to impress or serve will be consigned, we all know this, into the dustbin of history. And so the politician must remember to serve the populace and not, as too often happens in other parts of our country, the politician serving himself. That doesn't work in Kerala. So all of this, I want to say, is that this is the foundation from which one can build a vision. The vision for the future must take into account an appreciation of the present. And this is therefore my appreciation of what I value in Kerala and what I would like to preserve, even as I recommend certain changes and reforms going forward. What is striking, by the way, is that Niti Aayog this year came up with a Sustainable Development Goals Index and listed Kerala as the front runner in zero hunger, in quality education, put us second on climate action, third in gender equality, which was a surprise to me, and of course not doing that well in industry, innovation and infrastructure. I would like to see Kerala transform itself much more into a global powerhouse of the latter, of industry and innovation and entrepreneurship, even as it retains its good qualities and of course celebrates and deepens its absolutely vital artistic, cultural and creative legacy. Everything from our dance to our cinema is absolutely top class, and we should preserve it and support it. And that's where the young must not discard these monumental achievements of Kerala so far. But we must build on them. And we must build on them in a sustainable way so that you young people can be assured that your own future will be bearable and will not be blighted by the actions of the present. Now, one of the things that I applauded, you may remember a certain controversy earlier this year, was when I applauded the report of the 2024 Global Startup Ecosystem, which analyzed apparently over 4.5 million companies across 300 different innovation systems around the world and decided that Kerala had the most impressive new startup culture. When I hailed this, I was attacked by some for giving undue credit to the present government. Let me take this beyond politics and say, whatever the accuracy of these figures and whatever the government's claims may or may not represent in the lived experience of Kerala's businessmen, this is still the way to go. We must absolutely encourage startups in our state. We cannot afford a situation anymore where anywhere we look in the world, Keralites are thriving except in Kerala. That won't do. What is the difference? It is the ecosystem abroad permits innovation, permits entrepreneurship, and ours does not. That must change. If indeed the government is right and that Kerala has recorded a remarkable 254% annual growth rate in startups, if it is true, wonderful. If it is not true, let's make it true. Let us indeed head in that direction. Because if we don't, the phenomenon we are witnessing of young people graduating from Kerala and looking to escape our state, of young people fleeing to other states and to other countries because they feel there are no opportunities here, that will never be reversed unless we are absolutely willing to facilitate and encourage entrepreneurship, and new startups are the way forward. To my mind, there is no question that the Kerala of the Kerala Renaissance in society can also be the Kerala of the Kerala Renaissance in the economy. We can remedy the inadequacies that beset our status quo so that the stagnation we see today, one young student, when I asked him why he wanted to go abroad, he looked at me and said, "Sir, isn't Kerala now an old age home?" And I had no answer to that. The truth is, we may be a great place to retire, but the young don't seem to see us as a great place to work. This is what must change. And to change, there are very many important things that we need to do. By investing in our citizens, by educating and skilling them, and tending to their health and their happiness, we certainly will already make the right start. But we also have to foster a political and economic ecosystem which has something we don't have enough of now: transparency and accountability. We must leap into tomorrow with entrepreneurial excellence and sustainable growth. And the way we can do that is by slashing, and I use the word slashing advisedly, a vast majority of the regulations that we have imposed upon ourselves. At one point I read this absurd statistic, I hope it's out of date now, but the statistic was that in America and Singapore it takes 3 days to start a business. In India it takes an average of 118 days. In Kerala it takes 254. There is no reason why that should be so. And if it is so because everything requires multiple permissions and clearances, that every file has to move through 4 or 5 hands, let us abolish the regulations that make that necessary. Let us empower our business people, and also let us empower the bureaucrats not to stand in their way. Let them learn to see themselves as enablers and not obstructors of progress and development. I have advocated already for some years now, and I intend to do so again, an Investor Protection Act in Kerala. There is no such thing. But why have I done that, Father? You started the applause. Because whereas in every state in India we've had the sad phenomenon of farmer suicides, Kerala is the only state in the country where we have had investor suicides. In the last 15 years, 3 investors who have sunk their life savings in the state and found themselves losing everything because of non-business related obstructions by bureaucracy, government, politicians and the courts. They have committed suicide and vowed that others should not make the mistake they made. That kind of story sends a chill through the spines of people. I'll tell you a personal story. I was in New York after I left the UN and before I came into Indian politics, and I was not in any political party. So I was approached by the then communist government of Mr. Achuthananda, and his industry minister, Edamaram Karim, was coming to America to try and attract investors, and I hosted at my own expense a dinner for the industry minister and his senior officials to do a presentation to about 40 potential investors, including many Marunad and Malayalis. They did their best. They tried to explain. Of course, all the questions came up. What about hartals? What about red flags? What about protests? What are the difficult challenges? At the end of it all, they thought they had answered everything all right. They went away. And then I made a call. I didn't call all 40, but I called half a dozen to a dozen of them to find out what their reaction was, whether they would consider investing. And I tried particularly the Malayalis living in America to see if they would sink money in their own state. And the answer, unfortunately, was no. And in one case, when I challenged a particular Malayali investor saying, look, you've got advanced human capital, you get workers who understand the job, who are literate, who can contribute well, he says, if I sink the same capital just across the border in Tamil Nadu, the same Malayali workers will come there without the red flags and without the hartals and strikes. That was the feedback I was getting. So this is a challenge we are facing, and you must be very appreciative of the fact that in our country, other states are welcoming investors, Kerala is not. So we need to, I think, pass an Investor Protection Act to assure investors that if they come in here, they will not lose their money for non-business related reasons. If their product fails, if they do a bad marketing job, that's a different story. But they will not be obstructed by the government, by politicians, by protesters. And there will be no hartals, because one of the first things we must do is to ban hartals altogether. Everybody has a right to protest. That's democracy. But no one has a right to coerce others into joining their protests. No one has a right to say that because I am angry about something, I will not let you operate your shop. I will not let you go to college. I will not let you go to a hospital. I will not let you enter a bus. That is antisocial activity. It cannot be permitted, and we must not only pass a law but rigorously enforce it to prevent these things happening. Kerala has to outgrow that culture of hartal and protest if it is to have a future in the 21st century. In many ways, I'm proud to say that in my own constituency the other day, the Prime Minister inaugurated a 21st century port in Vizhinjam, which in many ways is going to be a lodestar for a different kind of example of Kerala development. And that is a port which is in many ways a transformation of a port that for history has existed for 1,000 years, possibly 2,000, possibly in the Roman days, if we can link it to the old harbors, possibly the place called Balita, which may have been their rendering of Vizhinjam in the days of the Roman Empire. It is now today's India's first deep water transshipment port, where the biggest container vessels in the entire world, which could not dock in anywhere in India before, can now dock in India in Vizhinjam because we have undredged depth of 24 meters. That, to my mind, is one of the most important challenges, because in fact, all our goods are transshipped. Nowadays, ships come with huge containers laden from top to bottom. And in order to economize on the cost of transport, the ships are getting bigger and bigger. You need bigger ports. You need modern ports. You can imagine my satisfaction when I saw a girl, a product of a fishing village family from Vizhinjam, who had an education and was trained afterwards in doing this work in Vizhinjam, sitting in an air-conditioned room, moving an extremely large and heavy crane through a joystick on a computer. It was an amazing sight. You would never have imagined any girl in Kerala or anywhere else in India operating a heavy crane in a big port. Today, there are girls from fishing families sitting, as I said, in air-conditioned rooms in Vizhinjam operating heavy cranes. That is a transformation that has happened. I don't want to go on too much because I know that you want to have a question and answer session. But there is, I think, extremely important progress we need to make, of which Vizhinjam is not just a port, it is in many ways a repudiation of the belief that have been imposed upon us that to gain access to the global marketplace, we had to be at the mercy of other nations. We don't have to be. We can have best in class in our own state. Now, the consequences of Vizhinjam Port are going to multiply. There will be logistics clusters, cold chains and cold storage, advanced warehousing technologies, new maritime possibilities, including perhaps a maritime education, maritime technology institute. All of this is likely to come in the wake of this port because it's a 21st century, highly modern, highly mechanized, highly computerized port. At the same time, there are other areas we have. For example, are you conscious of the fact that there is a whole lot of advanced work taking place elsewhere in the world in a field where we ought to be natural, and that's genetics and genetic studies. We in Kerala have amongst the greatest genetic heterogeneity in the world. We have people who are Dravidians, who are Aryans, who are Arabian, Persian, Jewish, Roman, even African origin. Siddhis are there in northern Malabar. We have every kind of ethnicity, and as a result, there was a study by the Indian Genome Variation Consortium that confirmed that Kerala's population groups show the presence of several ancestral gene pools, making it invaluable to study population genetics, to study disease, to study a new field called pharmacogenomics, and of course to develop precision medicine. This is a policy opportunity for us. We can be a national hub for genetic studies, for personalized healthcare, for pharmaceutical innovation based on genetic research. And this is something we can do using diverse genomes that we have already in our population to map disease risk and drug response. It's interesting that even countries with a much more homogeneous gene pool like Iceland and Estonia have used their national gene pools to build biotech industries and preventive healthcare models. We can do so much better than them, but no one has thought of it yet. We need to do that now. Similarly, biodiversity. We hear about biodiversity all the time, the Western Ghats, the great genetic density of our flora, fauna, microorganisms there. But the fact is, there is so much in Kerala that we have not capitalized on. More than 10,000 species of flowering plants, 500 species of birds, 160 species of mammals, 180 species of freshwater fish, 173 species of reptiles, and of course, medicinal plants, over 1,200 species that have already been used in Ayurveda and traditional medicine. With all of this and our climate resilience, think of the fields that we can now move into which we have not done. Developing new medicines, developing expertise in resilient agriculture, climate change mitigation, sustainable forestry with all our forests, bio-industrial innovation. And yet, of course, we have been guilty of unplanned urbanization, of increasing monocropping in order to make money, and of course, we are not paying enough attention to climate change. As we saw in the landslides in Wayanad not too long ago, there is a great deal we need to do to ensure that whatever we preserve is preserved for the future generations, the young people here. So I want the young people to be conscious of their heritage, their gene pool, but also of their precious inheritance of biological and biodiversity, because that environment is going to be amongst their most precious inheritances to carry on into the future. We have also the coastline and maritime economy. I mentioned the port, but I have not mentioned the fact that we have great marine biodiversity, which is amongst the richest in the world. Lots of key species of fish, and yet we are only contributing 5 to 6% of India's marine exports, primarily due to underinvestment. We can bring in the investment. If we attract the investors, they will come. They want to make money. We want them to generate jobs here. We want them to export. We want them to promote our fishing and maritime culture. But for that, we need deep sea fishing fleets. We need cold storage and processing. We need marine biotechnology and ocean farming. All of this can be done if we are hospitable to outside investors. To my mind, all this talk of blue economy would be empty without Kerala being a leader of everything from seaweed farming to marine pharmaceuticals. Coastal tourism is an obvious no-brainer. Some of it is already happening. Ocean energy, at the moment not economic, but it can be explored. There's so much we can do. We have 44 rivers. Some of them are drying up from neglect. We have 1,500 kilometers of navigable backwaters. What are we doing with that? We do need to connect these backwaters once again. In fact, there is so much we can do with our inland water navigation possibilities. At the same time, I will be the first to admit that the left is right on one thing: heavy industrialization is not feasible. In fact, I think that we must understand it's, for us, ecologically unsustainable in our state. We have very high population density. We are more than double the Indian average. India's population density is 464 per square kilometers. Kerala is 901. And of course, we have an enormous amount of ecological fragility. We are prone to landslides, to floods, to monsoon variability, and so on. So large industrial parks, such as being touted in other states, including in our neighboring Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, I don't think we need to go that way. Coal-fired plants, high water consumption factories, these are not going to work in Kerala. So we cannot follow a Gujarat model or a Tamil Nadu model. We must build a services-led, technology-augmented, human-intensive economy that creates value without destroying nature. And let me say particularly to the youth here, I've been trying to look to the future in everything I've said, because the future is yours. You represent a generation that is already very comfortable with the digital world. You're digitally native, as they say. You are much more environmentally aware than my generation was. We didn't grow up at all conscious of the air, the water, pollution, climate change, global warming. You are, because these are all terms you've grown up hearing. You are socially conscious. You are much more globally connected than my generation, because you've grown up again with the internet with the knowledge of what's going on in other parts of the world accessible to you with the click of a mouse or a glance at a mobile screen. You are therefore the most powerful change makers that Kerala has ever produced. You need to take charge. It's already your country in terms of the fact that you are already the majority, but you're letting the old decide for you what is right. I want you to invest in interdisciplinary skills. Technology is hugely important. I need you in Kerala, in your universities, in your colleges, to study, yes, artificial intelligence, inescapable today, climate science also, and of course, geoeconomics, while never forgetting something that CMS College will always teach you, which is ethics. Without ethics, all of this is worth nothing. You must be conscious that we have a lot of rural areas and rural innovation is vital. You can develop solutions that we can't think of today for rural energy, for agriculture, for education at the grassroots level. You must also champion civic values. That's a strength in Kerala we saw during COVID, how community consciousness and civic consciousness sustains us. You can fight misinformation. You can uphold constitutional values. You can protect our diversity, ethnic diversity, religious diversity, diversity of political opinion. All that must be safeguarded, and you can do it. And this old line about think globally, act locally. Yes, you can bring international ideas to our home. You can adapt them with local wisdom. But let me give you a new challenge. You should also think locally and act globally. I would like you to think about Kerala and see what you can take of Kerala to the world. Export our best, export our qualities, export our culture, export our products, and export our ideas. That too you can do. Amartya Sen, my dear friend and Nobel laureate, said that development is the freedom to choose the life one values. All of you, every young person here, must learn what to value. And you must have the tools, the freedom, and the platform to choose a meaningful life, one that you value. And that means, frankly, young people, you have to be involved in politics. I know that politics does not often come across as a particularly pleasant profession. But being, at the very least, a well-informed electorate is vital. In actively shaping our society would be even better. And let me say to you that in doing that, you are not doing anything that takes you away from your responsibilities to yourselves, to your families, to your future. Because you are already the leaders of tomorrow. Your responsibility is to cultivate and propel the notions of civic participation and responsibility, but also the need to invest in them, to be examples worth emulating for the ones to come after you, and also, of course, to create something better than what we are giving you to inherit and worth passing on to the next generation. As I say, innovation and entrepreneurship must be your hallmarks, much more than that of our generation. You must therefore invest in the technologies of the future, in robotics, in machine learning, in blockchain, in renewable energy, and of course in AI, which everyone talks about, without losing that success rate in human capital development that Kerala is rightly so proud of. By doing all of this, I think you can leverage the opportunities to take our state forward. And for you, as students right now, but as young professionals in the future, I think there's a great deal you can start doing right now. We need a culture where companies will come to colleges and say, hey, we have an idea. Can your students help research it? Can your students help develop a workable product out of some idea that we have had? Because we don't have the bright young minds, or at least we can't afford to pay them what they need to be paid to do it, but maybe you can do it as part of a university project. That sounds absurd, but it's very common in the West. A lot of Silicon Valley was built with this kind of academic industry connection. We can do that more in Kerala. I remember during the last election when I was in charge of the UDF manifesto, a young student, a girl student at St. Teresa's College in Kochi, suggesting to me, why can't we do internships while we are in college and not just in the summer vacation? Why can't we have a link with the company online where we can work 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, doing some projects for them, doing some writing for them, doing some other work for them. And that way we get to know about the company and the company gets to know about us. I thought that's an excellent idea. Persuading the colleges may be more of a challenge, but we can try and ensure they get some credit for this kind of work. It's not that students can't spare 3 hours a day. They can. They do. And they often waste it. Here's an opportunity to use those 3 hours a day during college time in order to develop an insight, a glimpse into their possible future possibilities. I think that in many ways, our educated young students can do so much more than they're getting a chance to do. And this kind of thing, while they're studying, getting a sense of what the workplace really offers, will give them perhaps a modest kind of pocket money for part-time work, but far more important, they will get experience and familiarity with the workplace, which in turn, they will understand how the companies are working, the companies will see what they're capable of, and that might in turn make a job that much easier once they graduate. So I am very, very open to trying to get the young already directly involved while they're students into the adventure of reshaping the Kerala economy. And in that I want to stress that we really ought to make it worthwhile and attractive for these young people to remain here, to study here. I'm not opposed to people going abroad to study, but I'm saddened when they never come back. I have gone abroad to study. Many others have done so and have returned and made all the more greater contributions to our country. So I'm not opposed to going abroad. I am concerned about staying abroad because Kerala needs them. And I say to the young people, Kerala needs you. We need you to invest in the future of the state. And let me say very, very seriously, the opportunities abroad may seem illusory now. I mean, may seem attractive now, but they could be illusory. Many of the Gulf states are already contracting the opportunities available. There will now be Malayalis coming back, and there'll be fewer Malayalis able to leave. So it's important that the young stay. As it is, the UN Population Fund tells me that by 2036, 22.8% of Kerala's population will be senior citizens. Can you imagine that? That young boy who said, isn't Kerala an old age home? I'm afraid he's literally right. There's no place, perhaps Japan may have a similar figure. I can't think of anywhere else in the world, but such a large figure of senior citizens, 22.8%. So the young, well, some young might make a living catering to the needs of the old, but that's not enough. We need to keep them here in order to shed our stagnation and to grow and stimulate and ignite our economy. I'm going to try and wrap up right now because I have prepared too many points to give you all, and I think these are enough to spark the discussion we need to have. I will say very, very much that to be a young Malayali is and should be a matter of joy and pride. It is in many ways an opportunity to harness the bequest of our civilization and our culture, which includes a burning compassion and a sense of justice, a commitment to human rights, and at the same time we need to add to that some acumen in business and politics and entrepreneurship. We need to add some innovation and creativity in order to serve our state and the most pressing causes of humanity. For this, I will say, we can create that new Kerala renaissance that I spoke of. A new Kerala model. A new Kerala model that will build on the Kerala model we're already proud of with human development, but add to it ecological intelligence, technological innovation, a business startup culture, cultural pluralism, and genetic and biodiversity studies and our uniqueness in all of this. Let us use everything, our gene pool, our culture, our seas, our rivers, and above all our youth, to script the next great success story of our country. The choice is ours, and the time is now. Thank you, young Keralites. Thank you all. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Dr. Tharoor, for such a thought-provoking and empowering address. Your words echo a challenge as much as they carry hope, for us to think critically, live responsibly, and act meaningfully.
Now we are going to have the discussion. We know we have, I don't say that 100, but we have plenty of questions. But we have already said to the people to send it. And there are people who said that they want to say that. I say, anyway, we will start with the students, especially because we have to give them more chance. Because you said that
they are the future.
Yeah. So you know that vision vanishes, people perish. That is a biblical quotation. We say that. So Kerala need a vision. And he has given us a vision. Very clear and very systematic thing. When you said that this Talks India, the T is about 2 years before I met you, and I said that Tharoor in Academy to lead in India towards incident. But it didn't happen.
I'm so touched. Thank you.
Now that is the vision is very important for the country. Especially we have to say that we have a renaissance during our independence time. We have a reformation also. Now Kerala needs reformation as well as a renaissance. So in the renaissance part, I think you can lead, and we are very happy that you lead the Kerala, you lead the country, you lead the young generation, because you have vision. So vision, when that is what I said, that when vision vanishes, about 5,000 years before, the Bible is said that vision vanishes, people perish. So even the family or any place. So let the young people, you will get the first chance. So I think start.
Hello, yes. So my question was, how can young Keralites balance preserving our culture with embracing modern ideas?
Well, I think that's a challenge everywhere in the world. The truth is that our culture is what makes us who we are. It's a foundation that we can build upon. So we need always to stand on that foundation.
Right.
But at the same time, we can't remain stuck there, because ultimately every culture is in a constant state of evolution. Some may evolve more rapidly than others. Some may evolve in what others would consider undesirable directions, and some in positive directions. But ultimately, modern ideas are opportunities to take things forward for our society. As you will notice, I praised many aspects of our existing culture, and I'm not asking for those to be changed. But what I am asking is for us to look at new ideas and new ways of doing things without abandoning the successes we have as our foundation for what we've got. So preserve our diversity, preserve our openness to other cultures, preserve empowerment to women, preserve the disregard for caste and other divisions. All of that's very important. Keep that as your basis. But from there, add more technology, more entrepreneurship, more innovation, more receptivity to business, less regulation. These are all things that we can do, which are new, if you like. For Kerala, they're very new ideas, but they don't involve abandoning your cultural roots. So you can certainly keep both together and keep going. Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaskaram.
എൻ്റെ പേര് പവിത്ര കൃഷ്ണ. കുമാരനല്ലൂർ ലീല സ്കൂളിലെ പ്രതിനിധീകരിച്ചാണ് ഞാൻ ഇന്നിവിടെ എത്തിയിരിക്കുന്നത്.
ഏത് ക്ലാസ്സിലാണ് പഠിക്കുന്നത്?
6ലാണ് പഠിക്കുന്നത്. 6ാം ക്ലാസ് വിദ്യാർത്ഥിനിയാണ്. ഇന്ത്യൻ ചരിത്രം സാറ് ഓക്സ്ഫോർഡിൽ 15 മിനിറ്റ് പ്രസംഗത്തിൽ ഉൾക്കൊള്ളിച്ചത് ഞാൻ കേട്ടിരുന്നു. 200 വർഷം ബ്രിട്ടീഷുകാർ ഇന്ത്യയെ കൊള്ളയടിച്ചതിനെക്കുറിച്ച് ബ്രിട്ടനിൽ നിന്ന് തന്നെ ശക്തമായും എന്നാൽ ഹാസ്യം ചേർത്ത് അവതരിപ്പിച്ചതിലൂടെ അങ്ങയുടെ നയതന്ത്ര പാഠവും അഗാധ പഠനവും എനിക്ക് മനസ്സിലായി. ലോകത്തിലെ തന്നെ ഏറ്റവും വില കൂടിയ ഇന്ത്യൻ നെല്ലൂർ ബ്രീഡ് പശു വരെ നമുക്കന്യമായി. ഇപ്പോൾ നല്ല മികച്ച ജീവിത സാഹചര്യങ്ങളുടെ അടിമത്തത്തിൽ നമ്മുടെ യുവതലച്ചോറുകൾ ഇപ്പോൾ ഇന്ത്യക്ക് പുറത്തായി. അവരുടെ അടുത്ത തലമുറയായ മക്കളെയും ദാനം ചെയ്ത് അവിടുത്തെ പൗരന്മാരാക്കി കൊടുക്കുകയാണ്. അടിമത്തം ശരിക്കും മാറിയോ? എൻ്റെ സംശയമാണ്. എനിക്ക് എൻ്റെ രാജ്യവും എൻ്റെ കേരളവും ഒത്തിരി ഇഷ്ടമാണ്. ഇവിടെ മികച്ച സാഹചര്യത്തിൽ ഒരു ബിസിനസ്സുകാരിയായി ജീവിക്കാൻ രാഷ്ട്രീയ സാമൂഹിക അന്തരീക്ഷം തടസ്സമാകുമെന്ന് എനിക്ക് മനസ്സിലായി. എൻ്റെ തലമുറയ്ക്ക് ഇവിടെ ജീവിക്കാനായി സാർ എന്താണ് വിഭാവനം ചെയ്യുന്നത്? അതിനായി ഞാൻ എന്ത് സ്കില്ലാണ് നേടേണ്ടത്? നന്ദി, നമസ്കാരം.
ഇതാണ് നമ്മുടെ ഭാവി. പോരെ, The Kerala Renaissance is here. ആദ്യം ഈ ബ്രിട്ടീഷുകാരെ കുറിച്ച് പറഞ്ഞത് ഒരു കാര്യം മറക്കരുത്, ചരിത്രമായിരുന്നു ഇത്. 200 വർഷം അതൊക്കെ ചെയ്തു. ഇപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾക്ക് അതിനെക്കുറിച്ച് മറക്കാൻ പാടില്ലെങ്കിലും അതിനെക്കുറിച്ച് ചിന്തിച്ചിട്ടല്ല നമ്മൾ ആക്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. അതുകൊണ്ടാണ് ഇന്നലെ നമ്മളുടെ സർക്കാർ പോയിട്ട് അവർ സർക്കാരിൻ്റെ ഒപ്പം ഒരു ഫ്രീ ട്രേഡ് അഗ്രിമെൻ്റ് ഒപ്പിട്ടു. ഇനി നമ്മളുടെ ബന്ധം എന്തായാലും 2 ഈക്വൽമാരുടെ ബന്ധമാണ്. നമ്മളിപ്പോൾ അവരുടെ ഒരു അടിമയായിട്ടല്ല കാണുന്നത്, മനസ്സിലായില്ലേ? അവരുടെ എക്കോണമിയും നമ്മളുടെ എക്കോണമിയും ഒരേ വലുപ്പമാണ്. അപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ ഒരുമിച്ച് സഹകരിച്ചിട്ട് മുന്നോട്ട് പോകാൻ സാധിക്കും. അതാണ് വലിയൊരു പുതിയൊരു ബ്രിട്ടീഷുകാരെ കുറിച്ച്. മറ്റേ കാര്യം താങ്കൾ പറഞ്ഞതൊക്കെ എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നു താങ്കളാണ് എന്നെ ഉപദേശിക്കേണ്ടത്. കാരണം താങ്കൾക്ക് നന്നായി മനസ്സിലാക്കി എന്താ ചെയ്യേണ്ടതെന്ന് ഈ ഭാവിയിൽ. അപ്പോൾ താങ്കൾ കാണുന്ന തടസ്സങ്ങൾ എങ്ങനെ മാറ്റണം, അതാണ് ഞങ്ങളുടെ രാഷ്ട്രീയക്കാരുടെ ഉത്തരവാദിത്വം. താങ്കൾ വലുതായി ഇങ്ങനെ ഈ സാമൂഹ്യത്തെ നന്നാക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി ഇറങ്ങി വല്ലതും ചെയ്യാൻ ശ്രമിക്കുമ്പോൾ അനാവശ്യമായ തടസ്സങ്ങൾ വഴിയിലുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ, ഞാനായിരിക്കില്ല ഒരു പക്ഷേ എന്നെ പോലെയുള്ള രാഷ്ട്രീയ ജീവിതത്തിൽ ഇരിക്കുന്ന ആൾക്കാരോട് പറയണം, ഈ തടസ്സങ്ങൾ മാറ്റിത്തരൂ. അങ്ങനെ നമ്മൾ പുതിയൊരു കേരളം കെട്ടാൻ സാധിക്കുള്ളൂ. മനസ്സിലായില്ലേ? എന്താ കുട്ടി പഠിക്കേണ്ടത്? താങ്കൾ ഇഷ്ടപ്രകാരം പഠിച്ചോളൂ. താങ്കൾക്ക് സയൻസ് താല്പര്യമുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ടെക്നോളജി പഠിക്കൂ. ഞാൻ ചില സബ്ജക്ട്സ് പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് എൻ്റെ പ്രഭാഷണത്തിൽ പറഞ്ഞില്ലേ, അത് പഠിച്ച് നോക്കിക്കോളൂ. അല്ലെങ്കിൽ താങ്കൾക്ക് വേറെ ചരിത്രമാണോ, ഡാൻസാണോ, പിന്നെ പ്രഭാഷണം ചെയ്യാനാണോ, രാഷ്ട്രീയത്തിൽ ചേരാനാണോ, അതൊക്കെ താങ്കൾ വലുതായ തീരുമാനിച്ചോളൂ. ഈ പ്രായത്തിൽ എല്ലാം വായിക്കാൻ ശ്രമിക്കൂ, എല്ലാം പഠിക്കാൻ ശ്രമിക്കൂ. കുറച്ചും കൂടി വലുതായി കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ താങ്കളുടെ ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റ് കുറച്ചും കൂടി ഫോക്കസ്ഡ് ആവും. കോളേജൊക്കെ എത്തിയ ശേഷം ആ തീരുമാനം എടുത്താൽ മതി. ഇപ്പം എല്ലാം പഠിക്കും കേട്ടോ. ഗുഡ് ലക്ക്.
Now you have a question from Baker Vidyapeeth, Kottayam.
What key values do you think Kerala's youth should embrace to become nations? And how do you think they can imbibe these values?
Well, look, I actually addressed that at the end of my speech where I talked about your duty to uphold the constitutional values, both uphold the cultural diversity of Kerala, the strength of Kerala that you see around you, that you've grown up with, that you've inherited from your parents, but also study what your rights are, study the Constitution, study and be conscious of your civic rights and obligations. Honestly, in many ways, you all are far more aware than the previous generation could be. You know so much more. There is much less ignorance around because there is so much more information available. Use that information to do the right thing. And I honestly feel that if it's environmental consciousness, much more awareness today about the environment than ever there used to be. It's about public health issues. When I was a kid, every parent was smoking. Today, children will throw away their parents' cigarettes if they see them. People realize how dangerous it is. You're seeing much more consciousness and much more awareness of all these negative developments as well as positive ones. Build on that. But assert your rights. You have the great benefit of living in a democracy. And that democracy grants you the right to pursue your own dreams, your own goals, and if necessary to change who governs you towards people who will actually stand for what you believe in. Good luck.
Yes, sir.
Sir, if you were 21 right now in present day Kerala, what would you pursue first? Politics, policy change or entrepreneurship?
Politics, policy change or?
Entrepreneurship.
See, that depends on the individual's interest. I happen to be more of a more intellectually inclined, and so I personally probably would not have started an entrepreneurship. But I would certainly have been advocating policies encouraging entrepreneurs, because even in my college days and my student days, I was very much inclined in that direction, and I advocated a much more free economy than we had in India in the time that I was 21. But I will say to you that every individual should be free to pursue their own dreams. You can have a vision of what the state should be. It doesn't matter that you do everything yourself. No. I may not have been a successful entrepreneur, or I may not have been inclined to be an entrepreneur. I may have been better at advocating policies and advancing them, either through politics or through journalism or through academics. All of those fields would have been my natural interests. And God knows where the opportunities would have come, I would have taken them. To my mind, that is less important than what it is you're working towards. You should have a clear idea of what is better for Kerala. And you as a young person, you are going to graduate and come into a state where perhaps opportunities are fewer and far between, where jobs are scarce and not easily available, where the different varieties of industries and businesses that you would like to see are in fact not there. All of these, to me, suggest that you have to do your own thinking about what interests you and how you can contribute. Because it's too easy a way out to just leave the state and flee, as too many young people are doing. We have some of the highest out-migration rates of young people in the country. That, I think, is bad. I think it's us, Punjab, are probably the two states with the most heavy out-migration. And that, I think, is unfortunate, because we really need your talents, your energies, your commitment to make our state do better. So stay on, fight, but decide what you want to fight for, and it's your right to fight for it.
Thank you, sir.
All the best.
Next, the question is from Fayabanati from Madras Christian College.
So my first question is, like you are a combination of many factors, like you are a diplomat, you are a politician, and you are a writer. So which is more comfortable to you? Like which is more favorable to you? And which is the most taskful for you?
Look, I am all of those things, but it's the same person. These are merely different facets of the same person. So I react to the world I see around me, whether it's in Kerala, whether it's India, whether it's globally, and I express that either through my work or in my writing, or sometimes both. So writing is something that really matters to me, that also occurs somewhat naturally, I'd like to think. And for me, therefore, it's something that it's my way of expressing what I feel about issues and how I react to issues. So that writing is there, God willing, whatever else I do. When I was at the United Nations, I had to conduct myself much more diplomatically and avoid antagonizing people or antagonizing governments, while at the same time advancing what we needed to do. And I was very fortunate to have had some amazingly remarkable opportunities at a very young age. Leading the rescue at sea efforts for Vietnamese refugees fleeing by boat into the port of Singapore in my 20s, leading the handling of the UN peacekeeping operations in the former Yugoslavia during the civil war there in my mid-30s and early 40s, leading the UN's largest department in my 40s and trying to reform it and manage it. So I've done different kinds of things. And I was blessed and fortunate that these opportunities came my way without my having to seek them. I was always the one picked for these tasks and given these tasks to do by the seniors, the elders, the leaders of the organization. So looking back, what I can say I've done is I have seized the opportunities given to me and done my very best with them. Today in politics, you have to make your own opportunities as well. That's one difference. So to that degree, that is more challenging. In other ways, it can be also a little more frustrating, because whereas in some other fields, you are accountable to yourself and perhaps to the general public, like a writer is accountable only to himself and to the readers. If the readers don't like what he writes, he will fail as a writer. If what he writes impacts a reader, then he knows that there will be more demand for his writing. And fortunately, so far, I've been in the latter category. But when it comes to politics, a lot of what you can achieve depends on other people also, especially in a parliamentary system where individuals alone cannot transform. You need whole party mechanisms. You can't do a Barack Obama in India and capture the imagination of an entire state and become a leader of the state, you have to have a majority of MLAs getting elected in a state in order to come to power. The whole system also privileges a different kind of approach. So yes, I would say politics is definitely in that sense also more challenging, because there are very many moving parts and very many other actors who can also influence the outcomes of what you want to achieve.
So one more question, like you had during your speech you had told about Kerala is not having like that much comfortable with investors. Like I have one more opinion, like is that political consciousness is high in Kerala and that is making a disadvantage for investors? Like is there any way to balance it?
No, we can't dilute our political consciousness as part of who we are. But I think we can certainly point out politically as well why it's in the interests of people that we should generate jobs, we should have businesses, we should have money coming into the state. Increasingly, if we put politics above business, if we put politics above productivity, and if we put politics above prosperity, we are the ones who will suffer at the end. Politics will not fill your stomach at the end. The state is already severely in debt. We are spending more money servicing our debts than we are spending on development projects. I don't know if you realize that. The amount of the Kerala budget that is going on just paying interest on previous loans is larger than the amount of new money going into investment for development. The government is not going to be capable of solving this problem. We have to bring in private resources. There is no choice. And that is something that people have to understand in Kerala. So you can have your political convictions, but the hard reality of cold cash, of real numbers, is something Keralites have to learn to face. If it is part of my job to educate them on these numbers, I'm willing to do so. But it's a genuine issue. They have to understand that if we don't open up, we as a state will be doomed. You cannot constantly be borrowing money in order to survive. Kerala government cannot pay its salaries after September without borrowing money. Every year. Onam bonuses are paid with borrowed money. That is the story of Kerala. You can't survive like that. And already we have some of the highest taxes in India. So taxation alone is not the answer. The answer lies in economic growth, new businesses, new investment, new money coming in, and thereby generating new revenues.
High School Tiruvalla.
Hi, sir.
Hi.
Sir, I would like to ask you something which you just said, how Kerala is becoming an old age home nowadays. How can it not be an old age home with the increase of goods and costs, goods and services?
Sorry, with
the increasing cost of goods and services, how can it not be an old age home?
Yeah, I know the costs are an issue, but the problem is, it's not just the costs. It's also the fact that there are not enough opportunities for young people to make the money to defray those costs, right? Frankly, there are countries with higher costs than we have, with higher expenses, but they also have more jobs and more salaries and more money coming in. Kerala doesn't have that because we have not been a hospitable home for business. In the old days, we were wasting our efforts trying to attract heavy industry, which for various reasons won't work in Kerala. Started factories in Kerala and vowed never to expand here or never to come back here. That's also true. So we have to understand that we need to understand what we are good at. That's why I try to identify very specific kinds of industries, very specific kind of businesses. But if we attract investment in those areas, I believe we will generate more jobs and more possibilities. Young people will want to stay because Kerala offers them more. And then if you are working here and you're earning money, you'll be able to cover your costs. That's the main thing. But right now, I must admit, it's not enough for Kerala to be a great place to retire. We have to have our own sources of income and flourish, and that's what's essential. Like Florida in America, everyone goes to retire in Florida, but Florida is also making a lot of money from tourism, from Disneyland, from various other businesses. We're not doing enough of that. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
A student from CMS College will be asking the next question.
My name is R. Navanitha Krishnan. I am from this college, CMS College. I am studying in first year, history department. So,
which department?
History department. History. It's truly be an proud and prestigious chance to interact with you. So my question is a little bit sensitive, but I advancedly saying apologize to you. Advancingly apologize to you.
Why?
If it's a sensitive type of question.
Oh.
Sir, if you ever get an opportunity to serve as the President or Vice President of India, a role with the limited constitutional power, what will be your vision or what would be the aim to inspire within those limitations?
No, look, first of all, I'm not going to answer the first part of your question, on which strictly no comments. But on the second part about my vision, what I said for Kerala is also in many ways part of my vision for India. Because my vision for India is one of growth and prosperity. I want our young people to have opportunities everywhere. And I think that we can do that. I must say, when you look at President Abdul Kalam and how he ignited minds, made people believe in the possibilities of change and progress, that could be a contribution that I think all of us need to see being made from the highest officers in our land. We need to get young people to think about their own future and through that improve the future of India. So that's the inspiration I'd like to, in my own way, contribute to.
But sir, I genuinely believe that you are one of the most capable and experienced individuals out here who is capable for that particular position as Indian President or Vice President.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good luck.
I request Ms. Lakshmi Menon to pose the next question.
Hi, sir.
Hi.
My name is Lakshmi Menon. I'm from CMS College, first year BA English literature student. So my question for you is that, as an ideal sensation who is deeply engaged in public life, how do we manage criticism, especially from ideological opponents?
You know, you have to grow a thick skin in politics, I must admit. I didn't have one at the beginning, so I would get upset and hurt, though I tried not to show it, because that's also part of one's diplomatic instincts, is not to show your true feelings sometimes. But now I have learned to take this in stride, first of all, because criticism comes with the territory. It's part of the job. And partly because I'm not even sure how seriously you should take these critics. They don't half the time understand what they're criticizing. They criticize because they feel they have a platform in which to criticize.
Yeah, I got to notice that people used to enjoy your criticism more. So that's why I asked this question.
No, I mean, there's some kinds of criticism you can laugh off. There's some kinds of criticism you can enjoy in that sense. But when the criticism is palpably unfair, or when it distorts what you have said and argued, or it portrays you in a light of somebody you really are not, those things really hurt. And to my mind, that is something where you really have to grow a thick skin. That is, you have to learn not to overreact. You know, my late boss at the United Nations, the Secretary General of the UN, Kofi Annan, would often say to me that his father had taught him an old Ghanaian proverb. He said, when the sharks bite, do not bleed. So I said, Kofi, how can that be? When the sharks bite you, of course you'll bleed. He said, one day you will understand what I mean. And he never explained it, but then I did understand. Because it's precisely when the unfair criticism, the sharks biting, come your way, that if you suffer and bleed and show your pain and you become a victim of them, they get their satisfaction from that. It is your blood in the water that makes the sharks happy.
Thanks, sir. Thank you so much.
So if you can resist by refusing to bleed, maybe you might even be bleeding within, but you don't show it outside. You carry on doing your work. You carry on being who you are. Ultimately, the sharks will get tired of biting you if they see it doesn't work and you don't bleed. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a wonderful example, actually. Thank you.
Now we have a book release also.
Yes.
I deem it a great privilege to have my book released by Dr. Shashi Tharoor, Member of Parliament, esteemed writer, scholar and statesman. When Dr. Tharoor visited our college, St. Stephen's, Delhi, a few years back as an alumnus, we were greatly inspired by his sharing of experiences at the United Nations. That seemed to have influenced my joining at Nelson Mandela Center at Jamia Millia for Peace and Conflict Resolution Studies for MA and MPhil. At Jamia Millia, Professor Matthew Joseph, an alumnus of CMS College, to whom this book is dedicated, supervised my thesis on civil society, which this book is about. Professor A.K. Ramakrishnan, the then professor at the School of West Asian Studies, JNU, who is receiving the first copy of this book, had supervised my work on European Union as part of my MA project. I am also indebted to Professor Happy Moon Jacob, who supervised my PhD thesis on social movements at Jawaharlal Nehru University. Great teachers and eventful parents. Thanks to Mr. Abraham Kurian of Living Leaf Books for accepting this work for publication and for the excellent production. But the release of this book this day was made possible only due to the constant encouragement of Father Abraham Mulamoottilachen, the wonderful organizer of Talks India program. I thank Professor Anju Susan George, who is the first woman principal of this great college, where my mother also had the opportunity to serve as the first woman vice principal, for arranging this function in all its dignity. Thanks to the present in the Great Hall, who were kind enough to attend the book release also. Let us strive to build a peaceful world where life is celebrated and not negated. Thank you.
I can give my book.
Congratulations.
As a token of appreciation, Mulamoottilachen is presenting his book, Keeping Religion Private, as a present to our chief guest.
I now welcome Mr. Ashok Alex Luke, Assistant Professor from the Department of Political Science, CMS College, Kottayam, to propose the vote of thanks.
I would like to thank Dr. Shashi Tharoor at this outset for coming here, taking out time from his busy schedule and talking to us and inspiring us. Dr. Tharoor, on behalf of CMS College, I thank you for this wonderful lecture and for inspiring us. I would also like to thank our dear principal, Dr. Anju Susan George, and also Dr. Abraham Mulamoottilachen, who have been the two guiding lights of this lecture. And without their initiative, this would not have happened. Thank you, dear Achan, and thank you, ma'am. Our dear students from different schools, colleges, the parents who took them to this lecture, thank you very much. And also, a big thank you to the general public. In spite of the difficulty of the climatic conditions, this hall has been packed with full, and only because of this great man, Dr. Shashi Tharoor. And once again, thank you very much. Thank you.
ഒരു ഉത്തരവാദിത്വമില്ലാത്തൊരു സമൂഹം.
എന്തൊരു ഉത്തരവാദിത്വമില്ലാത്ത സമൂഹം.
ആരോട് പറയാനാ? ഇത് എന്തൊരു ഉത്തരവാദിത്വമില്ലാത്ത സമൂഹമാണ് ഇവിടെ.
ആണെന്ന് ഇവിടെ ആർക്കും ഒരു ഉത്തരവാദിത്വമില്ല.
എന്തോ ഇങ്ങനെ എല്ലാവരും ഒരു ഉത്തരവാദിത്വമില്ലാത്ത സമൂഹം.
Actually, it is a irresponsible society.
എന്ത് പറയാനാ? സമൂഹത്തോട് ആർക്കും ഒരു ഉത്തരവാദിത്വമില്ല. എല്ലാവർക്കും സ്വന്തം കാര്യം മാത്രം.
കേട്ടില്ലേ? ഉത്തരവാദിത്വം ഇല്ലാത്ത സമൂഹം. ഉത്തരവാദിത്തമുള്ള സമൂഹം എവിടെ നിന്നാണ് തുടങ്ങേണ്ടത്? ആരിൽ നിന്നാണ് തുടങ്ങേണ്ടത്? അത് എന്നിൽ നിന്നാണ് തുടങ്ങേണ്ടത്. നിങ്ങളിൽ നിന്നാണ് തുടങ്ങേണ്ടത്. മനസ്സിലായോ? എന്നാൽ നമുക്ക് തുടങ്ങാം.